shop, everybody. Before, it's after. There is no after, I have to build it. Let's get into it, shall we? Here's how to build a shed. First, demo. Pick it apart, I always say. Don't go bashing stuff. Don't go mashing stuff. More demo. Demo-rific. So it goes. Let's see if the demo plan worked. SIte. Downton Abbey, dead shed. So here's a common trait among old sheds. The more of these I take down, the more I find this to be pretty much a universal condition. And if you've got a shed to take down, I'm sharing it with you so you can be ready. That's a long-winded way of saying you don't know what's under there, and every one of these I take down has some ocean of chaos beneath it. In this case, I have an entire substrate built of this. This whole thing's like it's tiled. I was expecting some stuff. I wasn't expecting a ton of stuff. Time to trade this for this. That last one's going to get away from me if I don't limit. If you're doing a shed demo, it pays to have a plan to get rid of everything. For me, it's this. Whether it's a dumpster, haul out, something, your local garbage is probably not going to take it, so you got to have a plan to get rid of it. It's a good workout, too. Guillotine chop! And keep prepping the site. The next thing you want to do is build one of these. This is a full-size template of the shed's bottom footprint. I got it all squared up using 3, 4, 5 triangles in each corner. I have a carry brace here, and I'll wiggle this around so I can optimally position the shed and then mark the post hole locations. And dig a little more dirt. It never ends till it's over. Almost there. Now that we've got this in position, and I've kind of tweaked it and moved it around and checked for parallel to the house, which is right behind you, I'm going to do the old spacks through caution tape trick and mark these hole locations so I don't lose them. Now, I could maybe technically make this out of the actual frame itself, which is going to be pressure treated 2x8, but that's kind of getting heavy. It was worth the extra time to kind of put this together, and I'll use all this strapping later. Just you wait and see. Nice and light. I've got one hole set here. It's full of pea gravel. The hole is lined with a piece of landscape fabric going this way and going this way, sort of forming a bag. So if water gets in, it can get out. That's cool. And I'll put a patio block on top of that to support my framing. Back here, a little more of the same. They're 2 feet deep. I collected a whole bunch of rocks out of the last hole, so never to be one to waste some free supplies. In they go. And that's the anatomy of a shed post hole. Oh heck. Might as well share this. I've been thinking about it for all 4 holes here. Oh, thank God that goes away close. I like to start the post holes that I hand dig with the edger. For 2 reasons. 1, obviously it's sharp. 2, especially this edger, I can get a real good bite on it and dig the hole shaft straight down. Now I have a whole video on that elsewhere, but might as well at least toss a little bit of that in here. Once I get down whatever, well this, I switch, ooh, nice rock. I switch over to ye old long-handled shovel of awesomeness, this right here. Come on, baby. So I'm going to make this one a walk and talk, point and shoot, because there's about 50 little things going on here that if I just point and prattle, will get lost in the mix. So first of all, none of my jobs are normal, but there's this in the yard, and it is, I don't know what's it called, a cistern. It's a manhole cover right there. Anyway, it's dead level. So I'm going to use it to support my outside band joist on the right side of the shed. And I'm going to put on here those blocks. But to project the blocks out past the slab, I had to use a little piece of my favorite lumber, strapinga. So there I did that. Then none of my laser levels show up outside. So I did the old straight stick to straight level trick and transferred to this corner. Now, this corner needs to be blocked up with an equal piece of strapping to that corner. What's the big takeaway? Get it all level as possible, and if you're using blocks and gauges and different things, make sure they match on one side and the other, and boy oh boy, that's between the lines. Woo! How does this work? Huh. I think I've seen one of these before. What comes out of these? There it is! Boom! I haven't driven a nail like that since I got this gun for demos back in the day when, well, the world could come together and see each other. Those were fun. The International Builder Show. Ah, maybe someday. I love doing those things. 1, 2, skip a few. Boom, boom. And because I'm using all my brain cells to not make a mistake here, because everything's inverted, I forgot to tell you this. Framing on grass is like basically trying to frame on the surface of a lake on a windy day. It's not good. So, to kind of line these corners up of these heavy boards, which are 2x8 Madwood PT. I'll just put each corner on a block, and that kind of flushes everything out. Ah! That'll do it. Put my best side to the camera. Charming, I know. Ah! Yeah! Woo! We got our deck built. It's upside down. Next step is plywood. And what we did right before this is pull diagonals to make sure it's square. And it's square, baby. All right. Now we're going to stick spike it. And because we laid out from this side, we want to start installing our plywood from this side. So let's go back and put it on that end. The next move is we double check square with the plywood itself, because the machine edge of the plywood should be pretty good. Took a couple tweaks here to get this all straight and parallel. Now, some 2 3/8 inch nails, we're just going to nail her off. Another installment in the Mark is Weird Chronicles. I am planning ahead for one day this shed to be possibly a conditioned space, a HeShed, if you will, or SheShed, or home office, or what have you. And in anticipation of that possible future, I've taken it upon myself to put my favorite insulation in these joist bays so that if it ever gets conditioned, a wall heater, a wood stove, something like that, our toesies are going to be warm. Ah. And is there some building science to this, vapor barrier stuff? Probably. But the other side of the coin is, it's still a shed. It's not your house. Nobody's going to live in here. So, I'm going to stick these in here, like this. Ah! And leave an air gap, because rock wool is friction fit, leave an air gap to the underside. Man, I love this stuff. I got the 2x6 variety thickness, so I can have that air gap plus a decent amount of actual physical insulation. Extra TLC for the lawnmower and shovels. I like rock wool, but I cannot wait to start framing this. Somebody give me some sheets and sticks. Next, give me some good old-fashioned CDX 3/4 inch ply, baby. Nail it, chapter 11. Next, measure and snap for plates. That side's already marked. The floor deck's on. I've got studs. And I laid out my plate 16 inches on center. And if you don't frame very often, or this is your first shed, this is a place where you can get turned around fast. So what I do when I frame like this is I frame them together. I mark them together, then I take this piece and I set it as it goes, and then I take this piece, which goes like this, facing its mirror. The X's are on the same side. Then I take it wholesale to the other end. The reason for that is, I'm running out of hands here. The reason for that is, if you pick this up, turn around with it, and reposition those X's, which is very easy to do, your studs are going to be all off. So, long story short, mirror image those pieces. Okay, let's nail some stuff. So, what I'm doing here, and this is something I would not have done, would not have thought of were it not for my friend, the great and powerful Andy Angle. What I'm doing here is I'm cutting in a diagonal rack brace. Because I'm siding this with natural knotty pine, it's not like plywood or OSB or some other engineered product. So it needs diagonal resistance. And the way to do that, thank you Andy, is to use my favorite wood, strappinga. So what I'm doing is I snap corner to corner, then I set my saw just a little deeper than the strapping is thick. Then I'm taking 4 or 5 whacks out of the stud between the chalk lines. Then, in an effort to not hit myself in the shin, I'm knocking those out. Last little bit here. I'm going back and forth with these, and it occurred to me that if you're not really on your A game, not a bad way to take the tip of your toe off. So be careful if you do this. Might be overdoing it on these curves, I don't really know, but they come out easily, so whatever. Oh yeah! And the last thing to say about these is while I am spiking a lot of this together, this connection is going to be made with number 10 by 2.5 screws. I really want this tight. And one more time, thank you, Andy. Now, get to the chopper! One more important thing I should have mentioned in the last diatribe is that it is really, really important to make sure the walls are square first. So I just paralleled it with my deck, which I know is square, and that's what I did. So the walls are square, angle brace is let in, it's cheap, easy, effective, and if Andy says it works, it works. It's nice to have a direct line of sight to one of the best carpenters you'll ever meet. That's for sure. 2 number 10s, 2.5. Screw it to it. Next, tippy tip tip. Looks good. So with my line snapped, I can just kind of wanger-banger this out here. And I am totally trying to do this unrehearsed. So forgive the bumps. There's that. I should have grabbed the level while I was standing right next to it. What I'm going to do is get this where I want it on layout. Just freeze it for a sec with this screw. And then get it nice and plumb, which it's very close right now. Betwixt and between, baby. Woo! Now I'll fasten that plate down. We'll go to town. Somebody give me some tools. Snap lines at 2, 4, and 6 feet for lateral blocking, to which we will nail the oh so luscious Eastern White Pine shiplap siding. Do yourself a favor when you're marking. You can mark one set of corners here, like on this wall. Then, instead of measuring and marking the other side, just transfer it around with your square. Tell me I don't need a ladder. I think I can get this one. While I'm primarily using nails for the conventional framing aspects of this shed, I turn to screws for the angle braces. Number 10 by 2.5, 2 per stud. This chapter of how to build a shed is the roof. Now, first thing I will tell you is I'm no great shakes when it comes to laying out rafters. I could probably do these, but instead I decided to take a different approach. We'll talk about this in a second, but what I did to get this height or this rise in the rafter was I just took a scrap. You can see my old things here. And I put a block in there 2 feet above my top plate. Then I took 2x6 and I put it in the center of that block. Now, this is the ridge, but that block had a center too, so I matched this corner with that center. Then I came down here to, what's that called? The heel cut, the bird's mouth, what have you. Well, I can do that from here. And then what I then did was I lined it up so that my notch would intersect with the top plate. And from inside the shed, I came up here on this side, and all I did was trace this, trace that, transfer the angle, and then subtract 3/4 of an inch from there to accommodate the ridge board. This is how I put the ridge board together. I made an upside down T, then I made basically a beam pocket out of a couple 2x4 blocks. And I put that in there. That way, instead of just toe screwing up into here, this is straight. As you can see here, those tolerances are pretty tight. Just a quick tip from a very non-rafter master when cutting rafters is to have a pattern piece. So once you figured out your math or your scribes or your angles, cut them on a piece, make sure that piece fits on both sides of your ridge, then use it and it alone to map out the remaining rafters. Then this is the last rafter you install. Same goes for stair carriages or stair stringers, whatever you want to call them. Oh, for the love of mercy, I mean, if I can add anything to the corpus, to the lexicon of carpentry, make sure you have a very sophisticated, very stable, very high-end surface on which to cut your material. mean, seriously, some people, no pride. They don't know, I have no idea what they're doing. I mean, some people use anything. It's kind of embarrassing. The bird's mouth you can overcut. Don't overcut it too much. And there you have it. Almost everything I know about rafters. Okay, now for the barge rafter. We've got our blocks on, screwed from the back side of the end rafter, and I've got a little piece of strapping here to help me as a cleat. Now, what I'm going to do is, and I've already done some of this, by the way, because it's hard to talk and look at the camera and go back and forth and see everything and get it all right. I'll be honest with you, I'm not perfect, in case that was a big surprise. So, what I've done is I have all the pieces in place. Strapping's going to hold my level cut. I've already put this on and marked for my screw locations. I started one, I'll start another, and then without much ado, I can put this in, rest it on this piece of strapping, which I've now used this strapping in at least 3 applications. The template, the diagonal bracing, and now as helpers. So, I don't know about you, but I pretty much like strapping a lot. So now, I'll wanger banger this home. One of the things that I'm learning about screws is that when you've got a connection that kind of really needs to stay where it's going, entering the wood slowly rather than just blasting all that steel in there helps it stay where you want it to go. That got it. Now, last little element. These rafters were cut. Originally, I didn't bring it with me, so I'll have to do another take. Oh, there it is. These rafters were cut originally for a ridge board. The ridge board doesn't extend. So, instead of extending it, I just put in a filler block and I'll screw that in. Then I'll put in the next rafter, and we're done structural framing for this shed. Come on, baby. That's it. That all in place, and we're good to go. The roof sheathing's down here, and the roof is up there. Moreover, I'm the only one here. So, 1, 2, skip a few. Upsy daisy. What you probably can't see from there is I have a couple of cleats on here that I'm going to show you what they do in a minute. It'll probably be obvious, but climb up on in here. See if I can not make a fool of myself. It's not like I do this every day. And just like that, we've got some roof decking in place, ready for fastening. Woo! Glad that worked. How do you get down? my strapping cleats off. Nailing OSB, not something I do every day. There's no lines on this. So, what I did was, made myself a T-square out of strapping, line it up to the center of the joist, get a pencil, doobie-doo, doobie-doo, and then we nail it off. Come with me. Next up is exterior trim. I start with the soffits first, ripped from my eastern white pine. Then, because I'm here by myself, I need helpers. So again, out of strapping, seriously the world's most valuable material pound for pound. I just take and make a T. That's not a T, that's an L. That's an L. And I tuck it in here about an inch low. Then, get everything flush here, here, and then, get a couple up in there. And I'll work my way down the line. This is awfully flush. Yay! What I'm going to do is if I need to wiggle it out to make it flush with the end of a rafter tail, then I don't want to put too many nails in it to get started. Oh, that's nice. Same idea. Guess who shoots these videos? Same idea for the fascia. Fascia. Couple hunks of strapping. Do some work for me. Just a couple finish nails right in here. Little low because it hangs below the soffit a little bit. 3 seems to work. Then, without further ado, I guess one other thing to mention here is this. This is shiplap I'm cutting all this out of. So if you're ripping pieces on the table saw, like I am, be mindful of where that groove goes. That is a rabbit? I think it's a rabbit. That looks about right to me. Feels pretty flush-a-moly. Got it. It's not woodworking, Mark. Nail it. Got the fascia on. Next little detail is getting ready for siding. I already have one of these. Up here, the soffit planes out into the framing, but as a little addition, so we have something to nail the siding to as it comes up, I'm putting in nailers. Just a couple screws will hold her tight. Like this. Quick tip on installing strap style T-hinges on our barn door for our shed project. What I like to do is, because I want them to all be equidistant and all the same, all 4 hinges on these double doors like this, is I got to put them all in the same place. So I've decided 10 inches is good, up from the bottom, down from the top. Is there a rule here? I don't know, maybe. But it also corresponds with the Z-brace. Might as well show it to you now I'm doing this. It corresponds to the Z-brace on the back, but back to hinges, which is why I started this in the first place. So I will get 10 inches. It says 10 right there. Then I'll line up this hole with the 10. I also split the barrel of the hinge right down the middle with the edge of the door or this outside corner. So the hinge leaf kind of just drapes halfway. I find that works nicely. Now, if I ever can stop talking, hinge stuff. Scratch all. Hinges like to float around and move and shift and all that beeswax. So what I do is I get it started, get the hole started with the scratch all. That way I can hold the hinge firmly and just wiggle a little starter hole in there. Then I can grab my fast tenors, which is these. Thought I had them, but obviously I'm not very bright. And then now I'm not looking for pencil lines or anything else, and I can take the tip of the screw, get it right in the hole I just started, if you can see that, and send it home. If you're using an impact driver, I'm sure you probably don't need me to tell you this, but go easy. A lot of power, not a lot of strength in these screws sometimes. So just snug them up. And I think that's about all she wrote for that. Let's go hang this puppy up on the barn. Not shown the last hour or two putting this together. There are a couple of reveals and jumps and transitions that I really wanted to make sure I got right here on our barn door. Namely, and I better get a screw in here quick before a gust of wind ruins my day, is I made the doors to fit a 4-foot wide rough opening. So I had to make the doors to a certain size. I did that so they fit. That's no problem. They ended up being about 23.5 wide. But I also needed to carry the vertical reveal across, and to be truthful, I've never done this before. So there could be a better way, like to make the doors out of full stock and then adjust the rough opening to match the cladding itself. That's probably the best way to go. But I didn't go that way because I went the way I went. Anyway, the point is, we've got both doors in. The vertical trim lines transition. This is about as plumb as they make it. These pieces here, 1, 2, which also operate as the door jambs, are essentially flag shaped. So they will bring me down with a groove that I can then keep putting shiplap in all the way around. These are plumb in both directions, so I am off to the races finally. Might as well do a take here because I am, can't stop thinking about this because I'm working on the siding of the barn, which started out as a shed, but welcome to my mind, by the way, as I fall absolutely in love with this Eastern White Pine shiplap. It's just coming together. It's just so good. Anyway, carpentry. I'm cutting the 20-degree pitch of the roof. There are a number of ways to do this. I've just chosen to do one piece long ways up the side. And I have to cut a bunch of short points. More specifically, I have to measure to them, which then brings me to why I use work tables. So to measure to the short point, what I do is I align to measure from the short point, what I do is I align the short point with the edge of the table, hook my tape on the table, not on the short point where it'll slip off, and then I go down here and make my mark. Boom, booby dooby. It all fits, it's all accurate, it's all easy. I got a place for my coffee. Yeah, that's about 37 degrees. Ugh! Not shown, I just did an entire take on this quick tip for beefing up the door hardware that I didn't record. Just standing out here talking to myself. Brilliant! Okay, the reason for this tip is something I learned the hard way just a few minutes ago. I put the doors in, cleaned up, left in the dark last night, and kind of just sailed off on my merry way. And I didn't secure these at all. So what happened was the wind picked up, and it blew this one right off the darn shed. It broke up here in the corner of this flag-shaped piece on a knot, and what I learned in my forensic beginning of the day is that the hinge screw that comes with the hardware about 1 inch long. Obviously the cladding is 3/4, which means these hinges are really on what amounts to trim, and that's not enough. So what I did was I grabbed a couple number 8x2 HCRX coated screws, and rather than just rely on this connection, I've got a screw in each hinge that goes back to framing. That way, when that kind of thing happens, it's going to have to try a lot harder to get those things off. In the meantime, I got to get some hardware on there. Let me pause for a second on my siding and share this little tidbit with you. It goes like this. So it's shiplap like that, as you can see. I don't even know if it's in a camera. And there's a top, a bottom, a left, a right, and all that. Also, I'm piecing in to use up all my material on the back and the side where it's out of sight. So this piece also gets a bevel on it because I've beveled the top piece, and it's a corner board. So I need to make sure when I run it through all these tools, I've done so correctly. So I marked it up. I took it and I actually put it in place. It's so easy to just get turned around or forget something that just going to the location and putting it on, engaging it in real time really helps. So this piece gets ripped off. This is the direction of my miter. So when I put this in the saw, flipped around, it goes in there correctly. Then I'll cut off whatever the length or whatever it is I'm doing there. The punchline here, as I slowly freeze to death, is it's easy to get disoriented. And you have to do a couple of tricks to get yourself reoriented, or you're going to be throwing wood away. And that's no fun. Okay. Yeah, like I'm not going to go double check all this right after I hit the pause button. Are you kidding me? I'm not going to lose this one, buddy. Just for the record, if I did that last take, kept talking, didn't double check, I would have cut this backwards. Just saying. I'm going to use some screws and some shiplap to see if I can make the door handle. I can't even pick one up without knocking half the paint can over, so hence minimal takes. Let's try that again. So this part will go on the door. I'll screw it all together. Good golly. I'm using a washer head screw here because I'm afraid even though I pre-drilled and countersunk, if I blast a bugle head in a little piece like this, I got a lot of time in this. I don't want it to split. There you go. Gate latch. Well, we might as well find out together if this is going to work. Washer head screw, a couple fender washers, it's all laid out. I can't do that on camera. Who are you kidding? And then we started the hole back there. Let's see if she chooches. One, two. Rating full chooch. I got it. Oh, this is so much fun. I could even add another washer if I wanted to snug that up. Oh, I'm really happy. So this piece right here, not that I barely know anything about it, but I barely know anything about it, is called a weatherboard. And barns, old homes, buildings made of wood that want to get the water away from the end grain of the siding, because what can happen is the water can rush down the side and then curl under and get sucked back in via capillary action. Wood is most absorbent at its end grain. So what I've done is I've designed my own kind of weatherboard here, which I put together on the table saw, and it's just pine. And what I wanted to do was to get it away from the building a little bit, and I wanted the edge grain up. So the end grain and the face grain are probably more absorbent than the edge. So don't tell anybody, but I used OSB here just to pack it out a ½ inch. Had some scraps left over. Now I'll get that flush with my door jamb piece, and 1, 2, skip a few. Get a couple staples in there. I realize I should have galvanized fasteners and I should dovetail everything, but there's only one of me and I'm starting to get tired. So, weatherboard. Also, this shed is going to get a solid body stain in the spring, by the way. You're in, buddy. Right here. There you have it. El Rampo. Nothing too sophisticated here and no math. It's basically just getting a foundation point, which is this. I'll ride the ends of my ramp joists on there, and determining the termination point of the ramp up here. I've determined it's going to be 1.5 inches below where the doors close, so that way my 1-inch decking, there's clearance because I'm on an angle. That and this, and I'll trace that on a 2x6 and we'll get ourselves busy. My primary concern at this part of the adventure is to make sure everything's square. Very easy to get out of alignment, knock something, whatever. So I've got my piece square here, and I've got my piece square here. I did. There we go. Seriously, that was square just like a second ago. Now, that piece is already fastened, but my go-to here for fastening is going to be toe screws, or pocket screws, if you will. So I'll take my handy-dandy countersink, drill a very steep hole, sniffle, change bits, get a number 10x3, and rock 'em, sock 'em, lock 'em together. And then 16 centers all the way down. Like this. Slight edit. The ramp is 4 feet wide. The door opening is 4 feet. My deck boards are 8 feet. So if I go ahead and run my joists to the outside of my plate here, I'm going to have very little overhang or room for anything to have gone wrong. So I bring that up because this is why I build a lot of stuff out of screws or with screws. I can edit the construction. So I saw that when I went over to get my deck boards. I'm like, now we'll keep the overhang. All we got to do is move a few fasteners and we're good to go. So, even though I dropped it 1.5 inches, welcome to a day in the life. If I put the bullnose in as estimated, las puertas no cerrada. Doors do not close. If, however, oh, of course it's howling wind now. Take on the table saw and just make a little 16-degree rip. Bevel the top of that. They close. There you have it. Good gravy. I am getting a little tired of being tangled up. Boom. And that, my friends of the good ship Shed, that's all she wrote. See you on the next one.